Welcome to part one of a two-part presentation on the basics of the Selective High School Placement Program in the New South Wales Department of Education and Training. New South Wales has a long tradition of selective high schooling, going back to the late 1800s with the establishment of schools such as Sydney Boys and Sydney Girls High Schools, which were created for the single purpose of educating students to progress to university, a much rarer event back in those early days. New South Wales continues to have the most well-established and wide-ranging selective high school placement program in Australia. In 1989, the program was expanded from the 11 selective and agricultural high schools that had survived, and there are now 46 high schools throughout the state which are either fully selective, have selective classes, or are agricultural high schools. There are 17 fully selective high schools, 24 high schools with selective classes, 4 agricultural high schools, 3 of which take boarders, and 1 virtual selective class provision, which operates in Western New South Wales only. 33 of these are located in the Sydney metropolitan area, and 13 are located in rural and regional areas. Selective high schools come in a number of formats. There are schools where all classes from years 7 to 12 are selective. There are partially selective high schools where 1 or 2 classes are selective from years 7 to 10 and sometimes to year 12. In remote country areas, there may be a composite class formed with selective students and the most academically able of the local students. There are also agricultural high schools where the day students are selective, and the 3 residential schools give some priority to isolated students. In Western New South Wales, a virtual selective class provision started from 2010. Students at this school stay in their comprehensive high schools and take all elective subjects with the other students at that comprehensive high school. However, for the core subjects of English, mathematics and science, they are linked up to the rest of their selective class through video conference facilities. Who benefits most from selective schools and classes? Selective schools and classes cater for gifted and talented students. These are students who are intellectually superior and who perform to a very high standard in class. Many people think that bright students will rise to the top wherever they are placed. There is evidence that when the social and academic needs of bright, highly achieving students are not met, the students can become depressed, they can underachieve, and they can even drop out of schooling as soon as they are able. These selective schools and classes are intended to bring together students who would otherwise be socially and academically isolated from other students who have similar abilities and work to the same standards. What is different about the way students are taught in these schools and classes? Teachers can work with students at the speed and intensity they need. Students who understand the material already do not have to sit idly by while it is repeated for the benefit of those students who have difficulty with it. Teachers can use texts and other resources which are most suitable to students at this level without worrying that they will not reach the rest of the class. They can also use teaching techniques which are known to bring the best out of gifted and talented students, such as open-ended tasks which allow them to reach beyond what is expected of them. Most of all, bright, highly achieving students are cooperative learners and form social and academic networks to help and challenge each other. Selective high schools and classes make these networks easier to set up. What programs are available for gifted and talented students in comprehensive high schools? There are a number of programs which cater for the educational needs of gifted and talented students operating as required in government comprehensive high schools. Where a number of such students are grouped in a class and challenged with an appropriate curriculum by teachers using suitable teaching techniques, there is little need for students to apply for selective high school entry. Gifted and talented students can enter school early if they are socially and emotionally ready. They can skip a year or grade if they already know most of the work they would be doing in the next year. If students have a particular strength in one area, such as English, mathematics, or science, they can skip a year in one of those classes. They can also be allowed to skip over sections of the material to be taught if they already know it, and they can also be allowed to study it in greater depth than the rest of their classmates. Where programs are tailored to a particular student, they are known as personalised learning plans. What are some of the things you'd look for in gifted children? This limited checklist is a good place to start. If your child shows many of these characteristics and achieves high grades in school, you might consider applying for selective high school entry. Do IQ tests have any part in the selection of students for selective high school entry? IQ tests measure academic potential. They are administered under different conditions and interpreted flexibly according to the information available to the assessor. Selection committees will not necessarily consider them, but they can help when there is little other information available to selection committees. What kind of academic merit is required for selective high school entry? If we compare the profile scores on which students are considered for selective high school entry with IQ ranges, in general, the academic merit of students who apply for selective high school entry ranges from the average to the very superior, as you can see from the lightly shaded section of this chart. However, the students who are successful for selective high school entry are usually in the superior to very superior range of academic merit. This chart does not include the residential agricultural students who are considered on the basis of their isolation as well as academic merit. Students accepted for selective high school entry range in profile score from around 180 upwards and fit into the superior to very superior IQ categories. This is a very rough guide, as the profile score is not only a measure of academic ability, but also includes a school assessment score component. I'll explain more about the profile score later. A number of school communities worry about the effect on the rest of a comprehensive school if students accept placement in a selective high school. In fact, as can be seen from the last cylinder, only 5% of the Year 6 cohort in New South Wales are placed in selective high schools for Year 7 entry. How do you apply for selective high school entry? If your child attends a government primary school, the principal will inform you that application packages are available near the end of October when your child is in Year 5. If your child attends a non-government primary school, you can pick up an application package from any one of the selective high schools or from any of the school education group offices. A full listing of the selective high schools and school education group offices is on the website shown at the end of the second part of this presentation. When you complete the application form, you will be invited to make up to 4 choices in priority order. This priority order is very important and should be very carefully researched before you submit the form. You should know where the school is located and how easy it will be for your child to get to it. You should also know the schools your child's friends are applying for, as your child may want to be with previous classmates if possible in the new high school. Don't put 4 choices if you are not prepared to send your child to any of the last 3 choices. This only holds the process up and prevents places being offered to students who are prepared to accept them. Supposing you listed the following choices in priority order: Hurlston Agricultural High School, Sefton High School, Macquarie Fields High School, Moorebank High School. If your child qualified for your highest choice, Hurlston, we would offer that place to you, and your child would not be offered a place to your second, third and fourth choices, even if you declined your offer. If, on the other hand, your child did not qualify for Hurlston, but qualified for your second choice, your outcome advice would indicate unsuccessful for your first choice an offer for your second choice, and once again the last two choices would not be applicable. In other words, you are offered only the highest choice for which your child qualifies. If your circumstances change between November, when you submit your application, and the end of April the following year, and you wish to change your choices, all you have to do is write to the Selective High School and Opportunity Class Placement Unit showing the new order of your choices. After about the 1st of May every year, all selection lists have to be prepared for the selection committees, and it becomes very difficult to change choices. If something drastic changes after the 1st of May, such as a change of address to a very different part of Sydney or New South Wales, you should write explaining the change in circumstances and providing documentary proof. Your request will be submitted for approval to either the selection committee or, in some cases, an appeals panel. You cannot change choices because your child was not successful for your original 4 choices. This is the end of part 1 of a 2-part presentation on the basics of the Selective High School Placement Program in the New South Wales Department of Education and Training. Part 2 is available from the Selective High School and Opportunity Class Placement Unit website.